Hello, it's Kristen here again. And in this video today, I'm going to show you this. Well, a very simple little kid's toy. But I'm not just going to show you this. I'm actually going to use this to visualize something quite nicely that I want to talk about, which is the relationship between sort of anxiety and stress-related nervous system states and the increase in chronic pain. So by chronic pain, first of all, I mean the kind of pain that is somewhere in our body. Sometimes our whole body is more or less affected, or at least it seems that way or it feels that way. Sometimes it's just in a particular area. There is no acute injury as such, or at least not anymore. But for one reason or another, we have developed this pain cycle that keeps feeding itself. And is more or less always present. Sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better, but it's more or less always there and affecting our day-to-day life. If you're one of those people who is struggling with chronic pain or suffering with chronic pain, you might have found that when you're going through a particularly stressful time in your life because of whatever is happening, is going on, is distressing and worrying and making you anxious, that your pain is also getting worse. And that is interesting, isn't it? We kind of have accepted that pain does, or that stress does that to us. But what does that really mean? And also, what can we do about it? Since that seems to be clear, is there something we can do? And the answer is yes. So when our nervous system is shifting us from, let's say, a really balanced, relaxed, healthy place into an anxious, stressed out kind of state, there is a physiology that goes along with that. So if I'm relaxed, let's say, so I'm really kind of comfortable in my chair and I have no worry in the world, everything's great, and really kind of chilled, then my body is feeling relaxed, right? You probably would feel that too. Yeah. So then everything feels kind of movable, easy, open, expanded. Yeah. So you can literally feel that you're feeling more spacious in your body, more open to the outside world and open to yourself. And there are possibilities here in your body. And it's true, because when we're feeling safe, when we're feeling a comfortable level of energy, and we're saying yes to everything comfortably, our soft tissue is in a relaxed kind of state. We're simplifying it here, but there is sort of a sense of expansion. Our soft tissue is soft. There's no need for our body to protect itself in any way. It's open to receive the goodness from the world, and yeah, things are open, channels are open, doors are open, and we're expansive. We can stand or sit feeling like we are allowed to take up the space. We don't have to hide. We don't have to protect ourselves. We're here. We're allowed to be here. It feels good to be here, and we're engaging. We're opening ourselves up to the world. Now, if we are stressed, anxious, anything like that, distressed in general, for our nervous system and our body, it doesn't differentiate much between being stressed out about the bills or being anxious about a difficult conversation we're going to have. Our body is just simplifying it and saying, danger, danger, possible danger. We must protect ourselves. We must sort of harden our shell. And you can imagine it. If you're thinking of a mildly stressful situation, or last time you got startled by something, and you weren't sure what it was, like a little, like a loud noise or something like that, our body instantly goes, right? The shoulders come up. We're really familiar with those ones coming up and staying up, because maybe our body isn't fully convinced that we're ever safe. There's that. That's an interesting one to consider with chronic pain as well. I'm going to leave my shoulders up here. And while I keep them up there, I'm already starting to feel like I should be more anxious than I am. It's interesting. But yes, we lift our shoulders up, our stomach clenches, Our thigh muscles might flex. We go into a sort of immobility because we're bracing. Our breath gets shallow. And basically, our soft tissue, there's a lot that's going on, but our soft tissue is also contracting. There is a contraction going on. And again, if you get a sudden fright, what happens? We sort of, our body braces, we contract, we hold ourselves together, we get smaller, we scrunch up, we protect ourselves, we get immobile, we hide, our neck gets tense, we don't look at the world anymore, and we're not acknowledging that the ground is still supporting us. We're sort of energy up here. We have no sense of what's going on down there. And let's ease it off for a second. And feel that disperse again, hopefully a little bit. Right. So when we're experiencing anxiety, even if it's chronic anxiety, of course, often chronic pain, chronic anxiety come as a package. When we're in those sort of states, or we're struggling to shift out of those states, this is what our pain looks like in our body. It's like this sort of tangled, tight mess of soft tissue. It's like a ball of, if this is representing your pain in your body somewhere, yeah, it's of course not as simple as that, but you can sort of visualize it as your soft tissue clumping up together, sort of making a tight ball. And it's all kind of tangled, scrunched up, it's dense, and it's just holding. And it's basically like that area in your body, just like anywhere else in your body, is trying to contract, to get smaller, to protect itself. But when we already have an area of pain somewhere, of course, this contraction, it doesn't allow that sort of nourishing blood flow so easily anymore. There's constant held tension. The muscle doesn't function properly anymore. It's just holding. It doesn't stretch and contract and works functionally according to what the messages it's getting from our movements and requirements. It's just holding. And all of that increases the pain. There's no more relaxed functionality, no health. It's just a ball of pain. So when we start beginning to get messages of safety, of relaxation, when that anxiety releases, the body also ideally gets that message in that area and starts to expand slowly. There's expansion, there's no more need for protection like that. We can trust the world, we can expand into it. And the pain has more space and doesn't feel so intense anymore. There's more movement in here, there's spaciousness in there for the activation, from the pain to be held, for blood to rush in, for nerves to communicate properly. And it eases the pain. And when we can live a bit more like this, of course, sometimes we do need to protect ourselves a little more and get a little smaller, and then we get bigger again. And it's a much more healthy balance because both are important, but we don't get so scrunched up in this little tight pain ball. So what can we do about it? Well, one thing is, as you can imagine, focusing on things that make us feel calmer and more safe are a good start to allow this little expansion. And sometimes it's not that easy, and sometimes we need a very physical way to do that. So we can do a little bit together. You're probably already familiar with these techniques, but we could do it right now if you've got some pain going on, or let's say some discomfort even. One thing that I always would start with, and again, it doesn't work for everybody. So if anything that I'm suggesting here makes you feel more triggered in your anxiety or in your pain at any point, you can just stop and orient towards something that you know that normally makes you feel a little better. And whether it's just going to have a cup of tea and watching some TV, whatever it is. So be really aware of, is this feeling good for you, or is this a bit complicated right now? It doesn't mean that it's not helpful, but maybe it's not helpful for you right now, right? So just be careful with this. Chances are, though, that this is not going to be an issue much. So what first thing we can do is, as we're experiencing this discomfort or this pain, is to just acknowledge that we have some ground support, because remember this up, so this is what we call grounding, and I do it a lot. Just, you don't have to relax straight away, but just feel your ground. Really uncomplicatedly, feel your feet on the ground if they're there. Maybe it's more your pelvis on the chair. Maybe your back can rest back a little bit. Give yourself that simple support that's there. Yeah, so you just have something to rest into. And then something that we could try is to just imagine that expansion, right? Because maybe we don't have a lot in our life that we can draw from to feel safe and expanded. So what we could just kind of play around with is, can we just imagine it? Imagination goes a powerful way. So wherever your pain is or your discomfort is, could you just imagine that your whole body container is becoming a little bigger? There is a lot of energy compressed into a small space. How would it be to just feel into the area and allow it to become bigger? So that this tight and bound energy has some space to expand into, so it doesn't have to feel so intense. It can open a little bit, it can stretch out a little bit, it doesn't have to scream so loud, it has space. Yeah. So you can imagine your whole body to expand a little, to just have this sort of physical container be bigger, so it can hold more easily. And then notice if that's got an impact. What we could also do is, if it feels a little too strong to do this in your body, or it doesn't feel convincing, just use your hands. It's like, where the area of the pain, how big is it? How big is that in terms of this kind of contracted ball tightness? And you can shape it with your hands. You can sort of hold it in your hands, look at it. What's the shape? How big is it? Get a sense of it, which size is right, and that you're holding this tightened, intense energy, contraction. Maybe it's got a color or certain texture as well, could be a bit dense and gooey. And then really slowly, and just as much as feels, yes, that's true, can you stretch it out and expand it? So your hands are widening really slowly, so you're not losing the feeling of holding it. Maybe you need to pause. Maybe then you can expand it a little bit more. And allow it more space where it can breathe. How big is it going to be? What can you manage? Where you're still feeling that you're holding it. So spaciousness, expansion, really simple. How is it now? Just notice if there's been a bit of a change in your pain levels, whether you could sense a willingness, just a slight, careful, slow willingness to expand the container a little. Of course, there are many other ways to go about this, to work with the body, to shift the nervous system, to bring down the anxiety, to bring down the stress. But here was a very straightforward one to play around with. Please let me know how this worked for you, or if you would like any more advice with this, you could also get in touch with me. I'm always really happy to engage in a conversation and see what we can do. And if you've got any more questions as well, if you would like a video moving on from this, we're exploring some other ways to work with chronic pain or anything else, throw it my way as a suggestion. I always like new content that can challenge me to share it with you. So let me know how it went and see you next time.